I'm Eric Bricker, and I've been a psychotherapist for over 25 years. One thing I can tell you for certain is that no one makes it through life unscathed. At some point, many of us will rely on the trusted counsel of another person to help us navigate difficult times, or to reconcile a troubled past. Whether conventional or unconventional, professional or informal, there are a lot of different forms that helping relationships can take. This podcast is an exploration into what makes these relationships work. Who are the people that help us? How do they help us? What do people need help with? My hope is to uncover as much as I can about this very human phenomenon, and I hope that you'll join me. This is the Good Counsel Podcast. My name is Eric Bricker, and this is the Good Counsel Podcast. I am joined today by my friend, Tanya Brown. Tanya is an author, a life coach, a grief recovery coach, a mental health advocate, and really basically a public figure. Tanya, thank you so much for coming and joining me today. I really appreciate it.
I'm excited to be here. It's important.
We're going to take on some pretty heavy subject matter today, and I appreciate your willingness to come out and deal with all of this. I know it's been a lot. It's been a lot for a long time.
Yeah.
So in 1994, your sister Nicole was the victim of what is probably the most publicized violent crime in American history. When I think about that experience for you and your family, and I think what is often lost in the tabloid versions of those stories that we get is that the epicenter of this tragedy are real people, a family, you, your two sisters, your parents, who are trying to make sense of this complete insanity. And with all of this storm of activity around you, you can't even come up for air, right?
Right.
It's TV, it's the radio, it's print. Thank God we didn't really have much of an internet back then.
Thank God.
Right?
Thank God. Yeah. We also had helicopters and, it never went away.
I guess my first question is, how do you manage the shock of everything that's going on to even deal with this tragedy as a family with all of this insanity going on around you?
When we have these conversations, it's kind of hard because I got to go back 30 years, right? We're 30 years. But the epicenter really was at 222 Monarch Bay, Dana Point, California. I go to bed one night getting ready to take on a temping assignment through an agency, and 6:30 in the morning, we all lived at home, and Dominique was already gone. She worked for a finance company, Smith Barney, I think, or Shearson Lehman, whichever part they were. But Denise, Dominique, Denise, myself, all the kids, my mom and my dad, we were all at home. Not including Sydney and Justin because they were in LA, but Denise and Dominique's children, their sons. And 6:30 in the morning, all of the sudden, I'm hearing screams that, I like horror movies. And if you combined every single scream from every single horror movie, that's what I heard screaming down my hallway at home.
Who was that?
It was Denise. And I'm not a morning person, but it was 6:30 in the morning. Time for me to wake up anyway. I opened up and I was still in a fog, and I didn't go to the dance recital the night before. And I was like, I don't want to go to one more dance recital. I'm the only one who doesn't have children in the house. And I'm like, I don't want to go to one more dance recital. You guys just go, but I opened up the door, and Sean, Denise's son's room was right next to mine. And Denise was just crying, and Sean was like on her lap. And I think Sean was probably maybe 7 at the time, 7 or 8. And I said, D, I go, what's going on? I called Denise D. I go, D, what's going on? And she goes, Coco's dead. And I was like, Coco? And that's what the kids used to call her. That was her nickname. I go, Coco? And, again, I'm still in a fog. She goes, your sister. And I go, no, that's impossible. I go, you just saw her last night. You just saw her. Not thinking that so much can happen in a hot second. We can get in a car, get in an accident. We could, God forbid, we could get in a heart attack right now. And I said, no, this is not happening. And then I started getting all frantic. And then I wanted to go talk to my mom and my dad. So I walked down the long hallway and I saw my mom to my left sitting at the kitchen table and white as a ghost. White as like her life was, I'll never forget it. My mom was pale anyway, but she became green at that point. And I go, Mom, is it true? And she couldn't even answer. She was just vacant. And then I went to my dad's, I went to the master bedroom. My dad was in the bathroom and his head was on his forearm and he was just pounding his bathroom sink. And I go, Daddy, is it true? And he goes, it's true. And then within minutes, somebody said, you got to turn on the news. And my mom and I, we were sitting, at that point then, we were both in the dining room. And she grabbed my hand and all we saw was Nicole at the bottom of the stairs. And she goes, covered in a white sheet. And my mom said, that's my kid. And then chaos started happening. The phone started ringing. They knew who she was. I mean, it's LA, it's Brentwood. Everybody knew who my sister was. And, but that's when neighbors started coming, cops started coming, media started calling. It was chaos. We're beach people. Like where we lived, it was behind a gate. Thank God we lived behind a gate. Thank God. I hated living behind a gate when I was a kid, but thank God we lived behind a gate during this time. You know, we came from a family where it's like, if you don't like dogs or you don't feel comfortable, you know, kicking off your shoes and hanging out in the house for a while. And if you don't like sand in your bathtub, you know, because we lived on the beach. If you don't feel comfortable in a home like that, then don't come over. Like we were just, and we still are. We're like beach people, real simple people. But
it sounds like a happy home.
Very happy. I mean, it was like, I mean, to tell you the truth, I mean, you've been exposed to a lot of family being in the business that you're in, being a therapist. I've been exposed to a lot of, you know, unhealthy, violent families just because, you know, being a domestic violence advocate. I'm like, I've said to my sisters numerous times, I'm like, you guys, we kind of come from a really kind of a perfect family. Like in the great scheme of things, we kind of do, because my parents were such exceptional people, and we were really that house that everybody wanted to come over to. Like we were that happy house. My parents always loved to have kids over, and people loved being over at our house. But I think what ended up happening from that moment on, that June 13th, because that was the next day, June 13th, up until this very moment that we're having this conversation, our lives were all different. So it was, the epicenter was ultimate chaos. I think it was the shock that actually, because you asked like, how do you move on through that shock? I think it was the shock that gave us the gift to be able to move on. Because otherwise, how do you survive something like that? You're not prepared for this. I don't know if it would have been easier if it was a stranger who did this, or had it been somebody, you know, like somebody who I've known since I was 7 years old, who I used to call Uncle OJ. So it was a very strange dynamic that we were all in the middle of.
There's a question that came to mind as I was preparing for this, and I want to try to articulate this the right way. Having been family to the victim of such a violent crime and such a highly publicized crime, to go through all of that, the trial of the century and the manhunt on TV and all of the tabloid speculation, all these different things. In the end, he was not convicted. And to this day, this murder, from a legal standpoint, remains unsolved. Mm-hmm. And I wondered how even something like this would impact the grieving process.
That's like the first time that I've heard anybody say that this is really an unsolved crime. And technically it is. But I think, you know, they didn't move forward with anybody else because there wasn't anybody else. And that really like blows my mind that you even asked that in a good way, where I'm like, oh my God, what a trip. You know, like, wow, this kind of is a cold case. Like it is it's an unsolved mystery kind of. Again, I think I didn't get through it, obviously, and we'll get to what happened to me 10 years after. I think being the baby of the family, I kind of followed I followed suit with what everybody else was doing.
And what were they doing?
My mom and my dad had the grandkids. My sisters had their kids. We tried to create normalcy in the lives of, within our home. So the only TV that was on was the only TV in my parents' bedroom. That was it. All the other TVs in the house, and we had a 6-bedroom house. So every single TV only had a VHS machine. It wasn't even hooked up to the regular TV. So if the kids wanted to watch, whatever, Teenage Ninja Turtles or Power Rangers or whatever, that's what they could only watch because the TV was not working.
So the first thing you guys did, shut down all of the access to network television?
Yeah.
So that none of the children could stumble upon something that would be
imagine?
Super disturbing.
I mean, we've seen pictures, I've recently seen the pictures, but they've been out there. And, through this Lifetime documentary, you forget these things. So when we were doing, and we'll talk about this, as we go on, but not too long ago, there was a documentary called OJ Made in America. And I think it was produced like in 2017 or 18. I can't remember, but I participated in that. But I didn't watch it up until recently, maybe 2020 or 21. Or a couple of years ago. And I was like, we lived that because we didn't see what everybody saw. We didn't see the chaos in front of the courthouse because we went through the underground where the criminals come in to go to court. So we didn't see the red carpet where the dream team, entered. We didn't see the scaffolding media chaos. We didn't see the helicopters. We didn't see any of that. We didn't see people standing on the bridges holding up signs. And we didn't see anything because we were living it. And so for me to see it, 20 something years later, this is 2021, 22. I was like, my God, we lived that. Again, like all the merchandise, all the T-shirts, the pins, the replicas, the money-making machines that people were making money off of my sister, a lot of money on selling little pins and OJ T-shirts and Nicole T-shirts, Nicole and Ron T-shirts, and I'm like, just as I'm sitting here, I'm getting a visceral feeling from it.
What's the emotion?
It was like there was a lot of chaos. And people who are of this generation who did see it on television, I didn't see what you saw up until recently.
Just to give you an example of my sense of the scope and reach of this thing. Anybody I know that's my age, I would bet they could probably remember where they were when the famous car chase, the white Bronco, was happening. My son, who is born in 2002, 8 years after this all happened, I mentioned to him that I was meeting with you today to do this interview. He knows exactly who Nicole Brown was. He knows O.J. Simpson. There are all kinds of cultural references to that, I think probably mostly on social media, but it is still very much alive, even in this generation of youth.
Yeah.
That a lot of them know about this.
Well, they studied it in school too, so I mean, what Sydney and Justin may have heard or learned when they were in school in the university, who knows? But, sometimes I trip out, like I'll be at a restaurant and every once in a while, like it kind of happened to me last night too, where I'm sitting in a restaurant and I'm like, when we were talking, I'm like, wow, you know what? Everybody in this restaurant knows my sister. And every once in a while, that thought will come up and I'm like, oh my God, I just kind of, good for Nicole, good for her that we made her not die in vain, but it was a lot of chaos. Our lives were invaded. We didn't have any private conversations. Where our house was situated, it backed up to the main highway in California called Pacific Coast Highway. We were on the beach side of the highway, but behind a gate, but our back of the house backed up to Pacific Coast Highway. And about not even a quarter of a mile, maybe like 500 yards, there was a restaurant with an empty parking lot. And the restaurant had closed, it burnt down. And so that's where all the news trucks were lining up and honing in on conversations with their big satellite dishes, honing into conversations with inside of our home. So for us to have any kind of a private conversation, we would have to go down to the beach to have it.
That feels like it would be illegal to me.
Yeah. Well, media they could be your best friend, but you can hate them immensely and they can be your worst enemy. And they've been both. They turned Nicole into a piece of crap, into a whore, into a drug dealer, into a drug user, and then they shined a light on her like she's this face of domestic violence. So like I said, they play both parts. Media is not your friend.
I think back on this very close family, your family, and a tragedy like this, just rocking your family, and what it would be like under the most, quote, normal of circumstances. And yet you have all of this going on around you. I couldn't imagine what it would be like to try to move through this kind of trauma with all of that and attention and insanity and all of the triggering that would go on. I think the goal of tabloid, right, and the tabloid culture of the 90s was about saying the most sensational things possible.
Yeah.
On the cover, in the same way on the internet, they utilize clickbait,
right,
by saying the most provocative thing possible to get you to pay attention to.
Right, yeah.
And so this is what's happening, but it's happening about your sister whose circumstances around her death are not clearly validated, like it's unsolved. And then you have to have a funeral, you have to grieve, you have to mourn.
Everything happened so fast. And
you have no privacy.
None. We had absolutely no privacy. It was just once our private lives were gone, and thank God I don't look like Denise. Thank God I don't look like Dominique, because both of those girls, they got recognized a lot, especially Denise, because she was the most outspoken one. Me, I'm more my dad. I kind of blend, and I was like, thank God, but I think what really was the driving force of how to navigate through this journey was to make sure that Sydney and Justin were going to be okay. I think that I can't even say I think. I know that was the driving force behind this whole navigation. We are not here for anybody else other than Sydney and Justin. And I was too young to understand that. Everything in hindsight, but those kids were my mom and dad's priority. They were my sister's priorities. And my God, even the grocery store, like if we wanted to go to the grocery store across the street, I think at that time it was like Safeway, we would call management, not me, but my parents or my family friend would say, hey, listen, I'm coming over to the grocery store with the kids, just an FYI. They would either put like a piece of cardboard in front of the tabloids, or they would take them off the shelf. Even Target did that, so wherever we went, and I get touched by it because we had so much support in our own backyard. And I totally forgot about that until I listened to this documentary. I was like, I forgot how much love and support people really cared for those kids. And that was the driving force behind this whole navigation. But it does damage. Don't let them see you cry. Don't let them see you react. Don't talk bad about their dad. Talk about their mom, but don't talk bad about their dad. So we were, my parents, you got to understand too, were World War II parents, right? Like my dad was a bomber pilot in World War II. My mom grew up in the war. She was a kid in Germany. Denise and Nicole were both born in Germany. Different set of coping skills, generationally and also culturally. And so I think my mom and dad were kind of like coaching us, just don't let the kids see you cry. I even think when the verdict was read, my mom said, okay, kids, we're going to go back home, but don't let them see you cry. And that's where the grieving didn't happen. And we weren't allowed to grieve. We were being told by the courts how to feel, how to act, when to smile, when to show up, when to look at the juries or the jurors, when not to look at the jurors, when to react, what to wear, who to show up with, who not to show up with. It was like we were under gag orders for I think 3 years. We couldn't talk about it with anybody or something. We were under some sort of gag order. So, we were being coached by the courts on how to behave. So how can somebody grieve properly when there's this hoopla, helicopters flying over your house 24/7, death threats every single day for years, security around our house, for years. And here we couldn't grieve.
What's clear to me is that you have a very remarkable and close family, and your parents, your sisters, and that you guys came together around this.
Yeah.
And somehow or other, you found a way.
We found a way. What's this statistic? Like 90% of marriages fall apart after a kid dies. My parents stuck together. My mom and dad, it was primarily my mom. My mom really was the glue for our family. She always was. She was always the matriarch of the family. But those two people, they kept the family together, and as the best way that they knew how. You don't go through life and you're not given a manual. Oh, just in case if this happens in your life, this is the rule book on how to navigate through it. Like one day you wake up and you're a total different person. We had on our dining room table, we had this beautiful shrine of Nicole, like with photos. We would light candles. We, just letters. That's another thing that I want to talk about. Not very many people know this, where we were getting thousands, not hundreds. We were getting thousands of letters from all around the globe. The Browns, California, the Browns, USA, the Browns, like somehow just those envelopes addressed as simple as that found their way to our house. And there's this picture of my mom and my dad. We don't know where it is. We can't find it. But the big canvas mailbags? Here's mom and dad, the two little heads around, and then all around them are like these big, huge canvas bags. And my parents read majority of those letters. Some good mail, some hate, some supportive, majority of it supportive. But, and then sometimes like at 2-3 o'clock in the morning, we would somehow, some of us would wake up and we'd find ourselves at Nicole's shrine. And kind of like, what the hell happened? Like,
that's an incredible outpouring of support.
Yes.
And that is a part of the story that I've never heard before.
Yeah. I have a letter somewhere in my storage that says the Brown family, and that was it. I know. It's like, how did these places with return addresses that I never even knew, like, where are you? Like, where is this place? But somehow these letters found their way to our home. And like I said, primarily my dad read majority of the letters. I think that was his way of grieving. That was his way of feeling. And my mom, her attention went to the grandkids too. So
it's interesting. I hadn't thought of it this way. I sort of thought of the attention as being this massive negative liability because of all of the tabloid and the TV. But equally, the publicizing of her murder brought to your family a lot of support as well.
A lot of support.
And that's kind of endearing to hear that.
Yeah.
That there were a lot of people who thought enough.
People, and everything in hindsight, yes, the media slammed Nicole. The tabloids slammed Nicole. When you put the whole picture together, we would not be standing today as a family if we did not have the support from people who may be listening to this right now.
That's really cool to think about that.
Yeah,
and I'm glad that you had that.
Yeah. Everything from, law professors, law enforcement, to judges, to victims of domestic violence, to survivors of domestic violence, to, from shelters to kids to, we had so much love surrounding us, but yet we had on the other side of the spectrum, we had a lot of nastiness, a lot of craziness, but it was because of the love, the outpour of the love and the support that we did get from a lot of people that encouraged us to like, okay, what are we going to do with with Nicole? What are we going to do with her now? And at that time, it was still early 90s. AIDS was still a big issue. It still is. Don't want to discount it. But Nicole loved children more than herself. And we were like, hey, why don't we do something for pediatric AIDS? This is before her abuse became admissible in court. And we were like, let's do something for pediatric AIDS. We were like, okay. So we were going to start a foundation for pediatric AIDS. And then one of those letters that came in the big canvas bags came from a lady. Don't remember her name, but if she's listening, I don't know if she's alive anymore. But it said, my dad killed my mom. I go visit my dad every week in prison. Here's 20. He killed her in domestic violence. Here's $20. Start a foundation in your sister's name. And I think it was from that one letter where we went, oh, wow. We did not know what domestic violence was. We never even heard mom and dad fight. And when I mean that, we never heard mom and dad fight. If my mom and dad ever fought, it was not in front of us. It was always done on their side of the house, if at all. But we never heard mom and dad fight. The only time I ever heard mom and dad bicker, not even fight, just bicker, is after Nicole's murder. I mean, how can you not? You're all tense. You're all stressed out.
Well, there's just so many things.
So much.
To deal with.
Yeah. There was a lot.
So at what point does your life start to normalize?
It didn't normalize for a long time. During that time, like I said earlier, like my mom and my dad had us. They had the grandchildren. My sisters had their children, and I didn't want to be around children. I was still a child myself. I still wanted to go out and party and have a good time. And so I met a guy, and he ended up being very controlling. But I needed a shoulder. I needed somebody to help me walk through that. And you can see him on some of the news clips. He was sitting next to me, and sometimes during court. And he was a very strong shoulder for me to lean on at that time. Not the most healthiest of all individuals, but it was something I needed. And here I am going to court, listening to how my sister was being controlled. And yet I was being controlled in this relationship. And I still couldn't see it, but it was almost like I just needed somebody in my life just to lean on. And this person gave me the attention I needed. And we had a relationship for a good year. And then I was like, bye-bye, because I came to my senses, I guess. I was kind of maybe coming out of a little bit of the shock.
It sounds like you are in an incredibly vulnerable place. And I feel like when people are in those positions is when they are most vulnerable to exploitive relationships.
Yep.
Especially if somebody comes along and speaks with a lot of confidence and makes you feel like they understand what's happening and they have the answers for your problems.
Exactly. And he did just that. And unbeknownst to me, he ended up, he got me, there was a point where I couldn't even afford like a Burger King Whopper at that point. And I remember going to my dad and I go, Daddy, can I have like $20? Like he wasn't working. I was a receptionist and, and I'm taking sick days also because I couldn't think.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
A Whopper cost $20 in California?
No, it was like,
it
kind of does. But I was like, Daddy, I just want like a Happy Meal or whatever, right? But I'm like, can I have $20 that'll go like to put some gas in my tank, right? Or just some fries. And so he gave me like $20 or whatever. And yeah, it is. It's like a Happy Meal. It was like $30. And that's without cheese. This is California. And then that Christmas, from this person, I got a tennis bracelet. And I was like, and I knew where he got it. It was through Denise's friend. And I went, well, this is interesting. I said, we can't afford a hamburger or gas in the car, but you can afford to get me a tennis bracelet for Christmas. So anyway, I brought my sister in on this, and I brought her friend, her jewelry person in on this. And so I had called this woman and I asked her, I told her about the situation. And she goes, Tanya, it was really weird. She goes, he called me up. He got you the bracelet. And I don't know if I had left him at this time or if it was before. I don't remember. But she goes, it was really weird because he said, and he was panicky. He said, don't cash the check because I'm waiting for a transfer of funds. And I had a mutual fund and, babysitting money. And I had a few little speaking engagements here and there. But it was a lot of money to me. And I was like, waiting for a transfer of funds. The only other fund I have or that I know of is my mutual fund. Next thing you know, we had at that time a family friend of ours who was a private investigator who watched over us. And I asked him, and Jonathan, he took his own life years ago, God bless him. And he goes, Tanya, he wiped out your mutual fund. So he really preyed on my vulnerability, on my weakness. And I was like, what a nasty SOB. I mean, what a horrible person to take advantage of somebody during the worst time of somebody's life. And it not only affected me, it affected my mom, my dad, my sisters. It affected everybody. And he was a reporter for Mexico City, reporting news back to Mexico City.
That is such a sickening level of predatory behavior.
Yep.
To exploit someone in that circumstance. It really feels soulless.
Soulless. I was like, with me, how I operate, I'm like, if you needed the money, why didn't you just ask me? I would have given it to you. Like, why'd you have to go and steal it and rob me? So somebody was like, well, why don't you he had his series 11 or 12 or something like that, or 7 and 11 or whatever they're called. And they're like, well, why don't you take it to the SEC? And I'm like, I'm in 6 trials right now. He'll have his. And I don't know. He did write me an email in 2008. I was a receptionist at a construction company in Irvine, California. And I get an email from him. He's like, yeah, I'm at the gym and I'm reading the paper. And it was during an anniversary time. And I said, don't you ever contact me again. You took advantage of me and my family at the most vulnerable time of our lives. Don't ever contact me again.
I feel like sociopaths.
They attract our family.
I just feel like sociopaths have a special gift for nonchalantness around their own horrendous behavior.
They do. They're narcissists. They're sociopaths. They think that they've done absolutely nothing wrong. And how we found out he was a newscaster is my sister-in-law is she at that time she was a house cleaner, and she was cleaning a home in Las Vegas, and this man had such an unusual laugh. It was more of like a hyena cackle. Like I think the only person who resembled that cackle is the woman who laughed with Tom Hanks on Sleepless in Seattle, right? The one who laughs like a hyena. And so Maria, she was like, and she's Mexican. So she knew exactly what. She goes, Tanya, she says, the unmentionable name. She goes, he's reporting news back to Mexico City about our family. That's how we found out that he was a news broadcaster. So not only did I have to go through, not the woes me or anything, but it's like, there was just so much going on. Everybody wanted a piece of fame at that time, and they wanted a piece of us, and they wanted a piece of the kids. They wanted their 15-minute of fame, and that goes to like the media people. That goes to, I love her dearly, but that goes to the Gloria Allreds of the world too. I love Gloria, love and respect that woman to the nine. But people wanted, and she did protect our family. She really did. But people wanted a piece of my family.
I think that's the thing about our culture, and it's been made worse by social media, is that when there's fame happening or there's notoriety, people do have like an unquenchable attraction to attach themselves to these events. And I imagine this wasn't the only predatory individual who tried to find his way into your family.
No, not at all. There were many. There were many, and we did attract a few of them. When Nicole was killed, before Nicole was killed, I was dating this boy. He wasn't even a man at that point yet. He was a boy, but he was such a great guy until he wasn't. This is before the trial and all of this. He went to the funeral with me. He went to the wake with me. He was the only boyfriend, or the only person that I dated who didn't capitalize on this.
That's good that you had that experience.
Yeah. And his name is Chris Weaver. And I've been trying to actually find him because I really respected him for that. And then, but we're young. We were 24, and he was like, oh, you're so focused on this and da-da. And I'm like, dude, I just lost my sister. You're young. You don't know how to deal with relationships. I didn't either. And sadly, it just kind of dwindled away. But you know what? I respected that guy.
Well, it sounded like you didn't really have the bandwidth with everything that was going on around you and the needs of your family for you to be part of their grieving process to really give the kind of attention to that type of relationship.
Exactly.
But I think the cool thing about it, in hearing it from you, is at least it created some kind of template for you that taught you the difference between what it's like to be treated well versus that the world is just full of piranhas who want to mistreat me.
Yeah, no, I mean, Chris was great. I've dated some really, really nice guys, but there's been like 3 or 4 that I can mark down there like, okay, I don't ever, like, y'all kind of share a common denominator and I don't want to be around that.
I wanted to ask you, because there's so much to talk about from that period of time, but it's a real mental health journey that's taking place here.
Right.
And so in between the time when things start getting quieter after Nicole's passing and 2004, ultimately when you were hospitalized, was there any other significant occurrence that you think kind of paved the way for what ultimately became your journey?
We'll go to 2004. So you asked earlier, when did I start having some normalcy? I would probably say 10 years after, but I had to get to a really dark place. I don't want to say the denial of grief, but it's more like the not denying myself of grief, because we didn't really know what grief was. I mean, we knew what grief was, but we didn't know what grieving was or how to walk through it. I mean, again, I have World War II parents, right? Pick yourself up by the bootstrap, carry on, fight another war.
I spent a lot of time working with people who have had very traumatic losses. And one of the things that I have seen occur is that after a traumatic loss, when people try to reintegrate into their lives or are just dealing with all of the fallout and the aftermath of these tragedies, there's often so much going on that this continual state of momentum really prevents a person from ever having an opportunity to be still enough to even really be fully aware of their own sense of loss, their own sense of grief. And I have to imagine for you, that is compounded in this exponential way. Yeah. Because you guys are right at the epicenter of the culture, and it went on for years.
For years, up until quite recently. It's almost like cortisol just stayed in our system. Really, adrenaline, we were always on high. Because either being on guard, not to say we've lived life like, in hypervigilance, life went on, life did go on, but there was always, it's within you, like like on a cellular level, like it just penetrated every cell in your body. And it's like what we call the new normal. I don't even remember who I was before this happened. I don't even remember who I was. Like I was just going to college wanting to be a therapist, just a normal college kid, and then all of a sudden it's like, this is a new normal. So I don't even remember who I was before I was 24 years old.
At what point do you recognize that there's a problem, that there's some kind of repressed emotional state of non-well-being, and that perhaps you maybe have repressed your grief or that you are not well?
I'm not well. That happened in 2004, 10 years, like I said, 10 years after Nicole's murder. I was to be married, and he counseled 4 days before. And I spiraled into a tornado of pills, Klonopin of all kinds, which is like takes down an elephant. And I loved my red wine. I wasn't taking my pill. I was taking my pills as prescribed early on because I didn't know how to deal with anxiety. Now we know how, but back then it was like, here, take a pill for anxiety, right? Take a Xanax or a Klonopin or whatever. And that was my happy place. And I spiraled for at least a month.
The combination of alcohol and benzodiazepines.
Lethal.
Literally lethal.
Lethal. I didn't know because I wasn't educated at that time. All I know is that I wasn't feeling. And that's just the path I wanted to go. I had this trigger and he didn't even tell me that the wedding was canceled. The facility called me at my mom's house, my mom and dad's house. And I'm sitting on the edge of my parents' bed. And my mom's like, oh, Tanya, I was supposed to be married in Laguna Beach.
When you say the facility, you're talking about
the wedding facility.
The venue that you guys were
The venue, yeah. Because
Gotcha.
we live in the world of facilities. Yeah, the venue, the wedding venue. And so I was to be married at this place called Tivoli Terrace. It's like where everybody wants to get married in the Laguna Beach Canyon. And I was like, oh, it's my dream wedding, my dream guy. And funny enough, we're still dear friends now to this day. But at that time, it was just like, what the hell am I going through? So my mom calls me. She says, Tanya, she goes, the phone's for you. She goes, it's Tivoli Terrace. And I said, okay. Sat on the edge of the bed and she goes, Tanya, she goes, are you okay? And I said, yeah. I go, why? And so I'm just planning stuff. And she goes, Tanya, your wedding was just canceled. And my mom, I'll never forget, my mom was sitting to my right. Dominique or Minnie was kneeling down on the floor. And I guess my mom slapped me like 3 times because she goes, your face was falling. It was almost kind of like a Bell's palsy. And my lips were turning blue. And my whole body was like going into like constricting. And I just like dropped the phone. And it was from that day on, that's when I went to the doctor. I got Klonopin, anti-anxiety, if that's what you want to call them. And I just, I went into a really dark place, a really, really dark place. And there was this event that we had because we had our foundation still at the time. And we had a fundraiser at the Playboy Mansion of all places. I think it was our third one, second or the third one there. And I was introducing Shayla Klein was her name. And I use her name, I'm allowed. And she, I was introducing her as the survivor. I had met her when I did a speaking engagement in Iowa somewhere. And I'm introducing her, supposedly. But I'm high as a kite on Klonopin. I've been drinking my red wine because I'm so angry. I was so angry. I hated it. I hated the world. And my mom kept saying, God, my kid's going crazy over losing a guy. And I remember telling her, I go, Mom, this is not about a guy. This is not about the relationship. This is like something, I don't know what this is, but this is gnarly in a California term. Like this is bigger. And I guess I wasn't introducing Shayla. I did not know what I was saying. All I saw was Denise down to my right going like basically cutting me off. I guess I was going off in front of 800 people saying how everybody needs to donate to our foundation because my sister's head was cut off. And I was so angry that Denise noticed that people were walking up and they were leaving. And my mom, I don't remember, I think Gloria was sitting next to my mom and my mom wanted to come up and kind of rescue me. And I think it was Gloria who said, Judy, she needs to do this. Like I was seeping. I hadn't exploded yet, but I was seeping. And
all of this is going down at the Playboy Mansion.
At the Playboy Mansion.
That is just the whole scene. I'm conjuring up an image in my mind. It's just wild what's going on with you.
And thank you for giving me the opportunity to share this because I haven't talked about this in a long, long, long time. But
Did you meet Hugh Hefner?
No, he never showed up.
Okay.
No, he never showed up. And none of the playmates that people see, they're more kind of like, not to discount them, but the cheerleaders that are the side cheerleaders that go to events and things like that. Those are like the playmates that would show up. That place is funky. It like weird stuff went down in that place.
And that's what I'm saying is like, my guess is no matter how bad of a gaffe this was for you personally, it probably wasn't even the weirdest thing that went down in that location that week.
Not at all.
So if it had to happen, I'm glad it happened for you there.
At that place, we couldn't go into the mansion. The inside the mansion was a no-no. You go on a tour and there's like a game room and then there's 2 rooms to the side with a bed and a box of Kleenex and that's all that was there. I mean, it's just, no, it's gross. It really was a gross place. And I think it ended up being our last fundraiser there. We did it like 3 times, not because of my doing, but because the wrong people were coming in and people were skinny dipping and stuff like that. And my sister, we were like, it was like, we run a nonprofit for victims of domestic violence. Like, this is all about women's health. And
wait a minute. So you're doing a fundraiser for domestic violence awareness.
And I'm going crazy.
You're going crazy. And meanwhile, there's people skinny dipping in the pool and it's all going down at the Playboy Mansion. And
it was a crazy, that was just a weird, it was just bad. So we never had another fundraiser there again.
LA.
Yeah.
Different kind of place.
Different kind of place. It's, what you see on reality television really does go down, the drama, the chaos.
Wow.
But, in all seriousness, I was losing my mind that night. And I don't remember what I said at all. I only was able to share with you what I said because Denise, when I was writing my book, we were interviewing people because I did not remember what I was saying. And so anyways, it was kind of like, somebody grabbed the cane and took me off the stage. Like, okay, Tanya. And I don't remember what happened.
They gave you the hook.
They gave me the hook. Like, okay. And Shayla, I apologized to Shayla like the next day or a couple of days or a week later. And she goes, Tanya, I almost got a divorce that night. She goes, I was so upset. And she was very honest with me. I mean, we had a very, very candid conversation. She goes, you brought all the triggers back for me. And she goes, I almost got it. She remarried to the healthy man, but they almost got a divorce that night because of me, because I went off and I made her feel uncomfortable. And I was like, Shayla, but she didn't know what I was going through.
Well, I would say this. When you're a powerful speaker and you have an impact on people, you never know quite what the impact is going to be.
Right? Good or bad, you just don't know. And, but I don't remember like what month it was or whatever. I mean, we were going to be married on September 11th. So it had to have been like September 11, 2004. So it was somewhere between September and October 9. So October 9 is when we had a family friend of ours over. Now, he's one of these guys that Denise and him know each other from like Studio 54 days when Denise lived in New York.
This is the numerology guy.
This is the numerology guy.
I read that in the book.
Yes. Okay. So I love him, but he drives you batty. So he's like one of these people where it's like, Mom, okay, if he's going to come over, you need to let me know because I need to go to my room, light a candle, and meditate.
Well, it sounds like him coming over is kind of like a performative situation where he's breaking out the numerology. He's telling everyone's fortunes.
He's been doing it since we were 12 years old, since I was 12.
And so you guys are in a big circle doing this.
We're like, yay, he's coming over.
And maybe with the recent breakup of your engagement and the fact that you are improperly medicated and drinking alcohol, maybe you're really not down for the numerology situation right now.
Down for it.
Maybe that just wasn't really how you wanted to be entertained in that moment.
Not at all. But I think he wasn't there to entertain me. I think I ended up being the entertainment for everybody in this moment that I'm about to share. Keep in mind, he is always wrong. He's been wrong It's like, okay, I was supposed to be married like 80 times ago. Right? Like the guy was always wrong.
Stop for a second.
Okay.
Stop. You're saying that numerology doesn't accurately predict the future? Is that what you're telling us?
In this case, no. And sometimes, like, I guess New York PD or department in New York would call on him to read numbers.
Are you serious?
And I'm like, the dude's always wrong, but I love this guy. I do, but he's different.
So this guy was actually called in on
to solve some case,
criminal investigations by the New York Police Department.
At times.
To use his numerology. That's fantastic.
I don't know which department. I don't want to say NYPD. It could have been somebody else. I don't know. But the guy was always wrong. He's always been wrong. I'm like, oh, here he goes again. He's always wrong. Well, he was wrong on the right day, on October 9th. And I needed this day to happen. I needed the cancellation of the wedding to happen, and I needed him to be wrong on this day. I was not expecting about what was about to go down. But he said something. He read a number or something. I don't know. I flipped out. And I'm 5'11". I'm a tall girl, and everybody in my family is like 5'7", 5'5". Dad was only 5'8". Mom's 5'4". I'm 5'11". So when I get up, I'm statuesque, right? And I'm getting up with like haste and anger and energy.
Some people might call that lunging.
Lunging. I was lunging. And I remember my dad was sitting to my left, my mom next to him. And I got up and I turned to my dad and I almost hit my dad. And I looked at my mom and my dad and I blamed them for Nicole's murder. Where's this coming from? This is 10 years later. Why is Nicole even coming into this? I bypassed Dominique because Minnie and I, we always helped each other, with our depression and stuff, because she and I both battled with it. And then I just went straight to Denise. I didn't even pay attention to her friend or our friend. I went straight to Denise, and she was standing in the kitchen, dining room area that kind of sits right next to each other. And then I was heading to my bedroom, and she stopped me. She grabbed me by the shoulders. Now it was loud. And I was screaming. I don't remember what I was screaming, but it was loud and dynamic and filled with energy. And Denise goes, "You need coping skills." And she's screaming this. And I go, "What are those?" And she's like, "I don't know, but you need to figure it out." And I'm like, "Where do I get them?" And she goes, "I don't know." I'm like, "What are coping skills? We're not taught this stuff in school." I didn't know. That was so foreign to me. And, keep in mind, Denise she's very worldly. She was a model, a Ford model when she was a kid and, or 17, 18 years old up until I think she was like 27, 28 or something like that, I think. And so she knew the life skills and the coping skills on how to navigate, when you're being told you're too fat when you're anorexic, or your nose is too big when you've got look how beautiful Denise is, right? But she was picked apart when she was a kid. So she just kind of knew how to do this just from her profession. And, you learn street skills, I guess, right? Street skills. You either are street smart or book smart, or you're lucky if you're both. But I was like, I don't know. So I was doing F-bombs, and it was bad. And I remember taking her again, her hands were still on my shoulders and tightly. And I just took them off and I just threw her hands off of me. And I went to my room, and I, of course, had my bottle of red wine in my room, and I had a bottle of Klonopin. And when I reached over to grab my wine, I knocked over Nicole's Tiffany lamp. And to me, that was the most hurtful thing. Instead of me about to taking, the bottle of pills, I was devastated that I broke Nicole's lamp because I was loaded. And I poured the bottle of Klonopin into my hand. I think there were 24 pills or something like that. And as I put them up to my mouth, my sister Minnie came in and said, "What the hell are you doing?" And she she took my hand away from my mouth, but I still was able to take a few. I think I took like 2 or 4 or something like that.
Was it your intention at that time to take them all?
Yeah. That's why when I say I shouldn't be here, I really should not be here. And that's Klonopin. I would not have survived that.
Well, when I think about what's going on there and so much alcohol, so much Klonopin, and so much repressed rage, and you have these substances that you're taking that ultimately sort of shut down your inhibitions, and you had been very inhibited for a long time because there's so many messages about not communicating, not showing feelings, acting a certain way, making sure to act a certain way around the kids.
Right.
So you have all of this pent up emotion, and now your fiance calls off the wedding and you're just in this really dark place, and eventually it had to come out, and it sounded like this was the day.
It was the day. That's why I say he was right. He was wrong on the right day, the numerologist, because I needed that day to happen. But yes, had Dominique not come in, I would have taken that bottle because I had the full bottle in my hand.
Scary to think about it.
I don't think about it often.
Well, in that moment,
wow,
you're clearly not in your right mind.
No.
Like your judgment is impaired.
Absolutely.
So you're at a place where you could do this really impulsive action without any thought of the potential consequences.
Or without even thinking about anybody around me. I wasn't thinking about anybody until she came in and did that. And then I don't remember. I think, you know what? Coming to think of it, I think somebody, maybe it was her boyfriend at the time or her husband. I don't remember this. I don't remember who, but somebody was like on the floor because we had dogs. And so somebody came in my room, I think, and started picking up the pills because we didn't want Kato to because we had Kato.
You had a dog named Kato?
Yeah, it was Nicole Zakita.
Oh.
Yeah, it's Nicole Zakita.
Just randomly, I remember there was that character, Kato Kalin. Did the name Kato have anything?
The kids named him.
The kids named the dog?
Kato, after Kato.
After Kato Kalin?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Kato was a good guy. He is. Kato's harmless. He's really a sweet soul. And the kids just loved him. And he was really good with the kids. And he was a good friend. He was a really good friend to Nicole, despite what people think. But yeah, the kids ended up naming the dog after Kato, which means loyal companion or loyal friend or something like that.
Is that right? That makes sense because there was the character Kato in the Green Hornet, who was the Green Hornet's assistant.
Oh, I didn't know
he
this.
was his partner, kind of like the Robin to the Batman.
Right. Loyal friend, loyal companion.
Yeah, and his name is Kato.
Yeah, that's it. So that's the meaning behind the name. And but I said this, so this is how I know that my job here on earth is not done. I said to my sister, get me out of here before I hurt myself or someone around me.